The road begins to narrow now, turning from the smooth, dark ribbon of the city into a pale path of crushed stone and silver dust that stretches toward the very bottom of the world. If you were to look at a map, you would see the land tapering, becoming slender and delicate like the tail of a comet, until the solid earth finally gives way to the deep, indigo waters of the southern sea. Here at the edge of Patagonia, the air carries a different weight, a purity that feels cool and thin against the skin, smelling faintly of salt spray and the ancient, crushed scent of dry herbs. The light is long and honey-colored, casting soft shadows across the rolling plains that seem to go on forever, rippling like a golden ocean under a sky so vast it feels as though you could breathe in the entire horizon. There is no hurry here, for the road does not lead to a crowded destination or a bustling center of commerce, but rather into a quiet expanse where the only clock is the slow movement of the sun and the rhythmic swaying of the tall, yellow grasses. As you travel further south, the sounds of the modern world begin to dissolve, replaced by the low, steady hum of the wind, a constant companion that sings through the wire fences and whispers across the open steppe. It is a gentle sound, like the breath of the earth itself, carrying the stories of the granite peaks and the blue ice that wait further inland. The ground beneath the wheels is a mosaic of smooth pebbles, worn down by centuries of flowing water and shifting winds, clicking softly together in a rhythmic cadence that invites the mind to wander and settle. Imagine the smell of wood smoke drifting from a lonely ranch house tucked into a fold of the hills, a thin gray ribbon of warmth rising into the cool air, signaling a place of rest and quiet company. The landscape is painted in a palette of soft browns, muted ochres and the pale, dusty green of the caliphate bushes, whose small dark berries wait patiently for the coming of the frost. The horizon is not a flat line here, but a soft curve that meets the sky in a haze of violet and blue, where the clouds move in slow, majestic processions like white ships sailing across an inverted sea. There are no tall trees to break the view, only the low, resilient scrub that hugs the earth, bending low to honor the wind that has shaped this land since the dawn of time. You might see a small group of guanacos, their coats the color of toasted cinnamon and cream, grazing peacefully on a hillside, their long necks swaying in a slow, graceful arc as they watch the road with quiet curiosity. They do not startle or run, for in this place there is a shared understanding of pace, a mutual agreement to move with the natural rhythm of the day. The light begins to soften even further, turning the edges of the clouds to a pale, luminous rose, and the shadows stretch out across the gravel, long and thin and peaceful. To reach the end of the road is to understand the beauty of distance, the way a journey can strip away the noise of the everyday and leave only the essential textures of the world. The air grows cooler as the sun dips lower, and the vastness of the plains starts to feel intimate, like a large, quiet room where every sound is softened by the sheer scale of the space. The dust kicked up by the journey settles back onto the earth, coating the roadside flowers in a fine, silver mist that glimmers in the fading light. There is a sense of arriving not at a place, but at a state of being, where the pressures of time are replaced by the simple, steady pulse of the land. The road follows the contours of the earth, curving around the base of low, ancient hills that have stood watch over this passage for millennia, their surfaces worn smooth by the elements into shapes that resemble sleeping giants. In the distance, the first faint outlines of the mountains begin to appear, not as sharp or jagged peaks, but as soft blue silhouettes resting against the darkening sky. They are the guardians of the ice, the great cathedrals of granite that mark the true heart of Patagonia. Yet from here, they are merely a promise of the stillness to come. The wind, which had been a steady song throughout the afternoon, begins to sigh and settle, finding rest in the hollows of the valleys and the thickets of the brush. The silence that follows is not empty, but full of the small, delicate sounds of the evening, the dry rustle of a bird in the grass, the faint creak of a wooden gate, the rhythmic crunch of footsteps on the cooling earth. It is a time for turning inward, for wrapping a warm blanket around the shoulders and watching the first stars blink into existence in a sky that is clear and deep as a mountain lake. The end of the road is a place of transition, where the dry steppe meets the first hints of the southern forests, and the scent of damp earth and moss begins to mingle with the dry fragrance of the plains. Here, the water in the roadside streams is clear and cold, tumbling over smooth stones with a sound like liquid glass, carrying the melted secrets of the glaciers down to the thirsty lowlands. The colors of the world fade into shades of charcoal, silver and deep velvet blue, and the horizon disappears into the soft embrace of the night. There is no need to go any further today, for the journey has brought you to a place of profound stillness, where the earth feels solid and reliable beneath you. The road has done its work, leading you away from the clutter of the world and into the quiet majesty of the wild, where the only requirement is to breathe and to be. As you rest here at the edge of the continent, you can feel the immense weight of the land behind you and the infinite reach of the ocean before you. The air is still now, a cool, refreshing presence that settles over the landscape like a soft veil, hushing the last whispers of the day. The fire in the hearth of a nearby dwelling crackles softly, the orange glow dancing against the window panes, offering a sense of safety and warmth in the heart of the vastness. It is a moment of perfect equilibrium, where the journey and the destination become one, and the mind is free to drift like the clouds that now sleep against the mountain peaks. The world is large and you are small, and there is a deep, abiding comfort in that realization, a sense of being held by the ancient, enduring strength of the earth. The stars above are bright and steady, casting a faint, silvery light over the road you have traveled, illuminating the path like a memory. Each pebble, each blade of grass, and each fold of the hills is now bathed in the quiet radiance of the moon, turning the landscape into a dream of silver and shadow. You can hear the distant, rhythmic pulse of the sea, a slow and steady heartbeat that anchors the land to the water, a sound that has not changed in all the ages of the world. It is a lullaby sung by the elements, a gentle reminder that everything is in its right place, moving at the speed of nature. Unhurried and serene, the night is a vast, dark cradle, and the end of the road is merely the beginning of a deeper rest. The transition from the day's travel to the night's stillness is a slow, beautiful fading, like a melody that lingers in the air long after the last note has been played. The warmth of the sun remains in the stones of the road, a faint heat that radiates upward, meeting the cool descent of the evening dew. The senses are soothed by the lack of sharp edges, by the way the darkness rounds the corners of the world and turns the rugged terrain into a soft, undulating blanket. There is a profound sense of peace in knowing that the road goes no further, that the land has reached its natural limit, and that there is nothing left to do but surrender to the quiet. The mind settles, the breath slows, and the heart finds its rhythm in the steady, ancient pulse of the Patagonian night. As the last embers of the day glow softly in the distance, the landscape seems to sigh and fold itself into the earth, preparing for the long, cold hours of the southern night. The wind has become a mere memory, a ghost of a breeze that barely stirs the hair, leaving the world in a state of perfect, crystalline clarity. You are standing at the very tip of the world, where the map ends and the mystery begins. But there is no fear here, only a deep, resonant calm. The granite peaks are sleeping, the glaciers are silent, and the road is at rest. You close your eyes and feel the immense, quiet power of the place, a strength that does not demand anything from you, but simply invites you to share in its timelessness. The air is now perfectly still, and the only sound is the soft, rhythmic breathing of the world around you. The stars are so close they seem within reach, like jewels scattered across a dark velvet cloth, glowing with a light that has traveled for eons to reach this quiet corner of the earth. The end of the road is not a conclusion, but a gateway to a different kind of journey, one that takes place in the stillness of the heart and the depths of the dream. As you drift towards sleep, the image of the long, silver road remains, a path of peace that leads you home to yourself, tucked safely into the vast, protective embrace of the southern wild. The earth is steady, the night is kind, and the journey is complete. The world is settling down, turning its face away from the light and sinking into the soft, dark velvet of the end of the road. In the quiet that follows the long road, the land begins to rise, lifting itself up in slow, patient folds of earth and stone. Here the air carries a different weight, a cool and crystalline clarity that feels as though it has been washed clean by the very breath of the sky. We are moving now into the heart of the granite cathedrals, those immense and silent sentinels that have watched the seasons turn for millions of years without ever losing their composure. If you were to stand at the base of these great towers, you would feel the immense stillness of the rock, a kind of deep subterranean peace that radiates outward into the cool mountain air. The light here is different than it is on the plains. It is a soft, filtered gold that catches on the edges of the high peaks, turning the gray stone into something warm and luminous, like the embers of a dying fire. The granite itself is a marvel of time and pressure, born deep within the warmth of the earth long before the first forests ever took root. Imagine, if you will, the slow and steady cooling of molten stone, crystals locking together in a quiet embrace, forming a substance so dense and so durable that it seems to exist outside of time altogether. This is the foundation of the towers, a hard and honest beauty that has been polished by the wind and the ice until it glows with a soft, matte sheen when you run your hand over a piece of this fallen stone. It feels cool and smooth, with a faint grain that speaks of its ancient origins. It is a grounding sensation, a reminder of the solid world beneath our feet, and the way the earth holds itself together with such quiet strength. High above, the peaks of the Torres del Paine reach toward the clouds, their jagged silhouettes softened by the distance and the hazy blue of the atmosphere. They are not mere mountains, but sculptures carved by the patient hands of the glaciers, which moved across this landscape with the slow, deliberate grace of a sleeping giant. The ice scraped and smoothed the vertical walls, leaving behind these sheer, soaring faces that seem to defy gravity. In the early morning, when the world is still draped in the soft gray of dawn, the towers appear almost ethereal, floating above the mist like the spires of a forgotten city. There is no sound here but the faint, distant rush of a waterfall and the occasional sigh of the wind as it wanders through the high passes, searching for a place to rest. As the sun climbs a little higher, the colors of the granite begin to shift and change, moving through a palette of soft pinks, deep ochres and pale, silvery grays. It is a slow-motion dance of light and shadow, a gentle transition that happens so gradually you might not even notice it unless you were sitting very still, perhaps wrapped in a warm wool blanket, watching the way the day unfolds. The shadows pool in the deep crevices of the rock, dark and cool, while the sunlit faces of the towers radiate a gentle warmth that seems to hum in the quiet air. This is a place where time slows down, where the frantic pace of the world outside is replaced by the steady, rhythmic heartbeat of the mountains. Below the high peaks, the slopes are covered in a soft mantle of green, where the hardy shrubs and grasses cling to the rocky soil. There is the scent of damp earth and wild herbs, a clean and herbal fragrance that fills the lungs and settles the mind. You might find the small, bright blossoms of the paramella, their yellow petals nodding in the breeze, releasing a scent that is sweet and resinous, like honey mixed with wood smoke. The ground is a tapestry of textures, the crunch of fine gravel, the soft give of moss, and the sturdy roots of the lenga trees, which twist and turn in their effort to hold fast to the mountainside. These trees are old souls, their bark silvered by the weather, their small leaves whispering to one another in the language of the wind. In the hollows between the ridges, small lakes sit like jewels, their waters a deep and steady turquoise. This color comes from the rock flower, the fine silt ground down by the glaciers, suspended in the water and catching the light in a way that feels almost magical. The surface of these lakes is often as smooth as a mirror, reflecting the towers above with such clarity that it is hard to tell where the rock ends and the water begins. If you were to dip your hand into the water, it would feel bracingly cold, a sharp and waking sensation that quickly fades into a pleasant numbness, leaving your skin feeling fresh and alive. The water is still, save for the occasional ripple where a small bird has touched down, or where a pebble has tumbled from the heights to find its home in the depths. Life here moves at a different pace, governed by the long cycles of the sun and the moon. The guanacos move across the lower slopes with a quiet elegance, their tawny coats blending perfectly with the dried grasses. They are gentle creatures with large, dark eyes and a soft, whistling call that echoes through the valleys. They graze peacefully, their movements slow and deliberate, as they navigate the rocky terrain with a sure-footed grace that comes from generations of living in harmony with the land. There is a sense of companionship in their presence, a feeling that we are all part of this vast and interconnected landscape, moving together through the quiet hours of the day. As the afternoon wanes, the light begins to stretch out, casting long, soft shadows across the valleys. The granite towers take on a deeper hue, a rich and glowing orange that looks like the warmth of a hearth fire reflected in a window pane. This is the golden hour, a time of profound stillness when the wind often drops to a whisper and the entire world seems to hold its breath. The air grows cooler, a gentle reminder of the coming night, and the smell of the mountains becomes more pronounced. A mix of cold stone, dry grass, and the faint, sweet scent of the distant glaciers. It is a time for reflection, for letting go of the day's thoughts and allowing the mind to drift like a cloud caught in a high-altitude current. In the high places among the crags and the couloirs, the silence is absolute. It is not an empty silence, but a full and resonant one, filled with the presence of the mountains themselves. You can almost feel the weight of the granite, the sheer mass of the earth rising up to meet the sky. It is a comforting weight, a sense of permanence and stability in a world that is always changing. The towers have stood through countless winters, wrapped in blankets of snow and buffeted by the great storms of the south, and yet they remain unchanged, their faces turned toward the stars, their roots deep in the heart of the continent. The geology of this place is a story told in layers, a slow narrative of fire and ice. Each band of rock, each curve of the mountainside, is a page in a book that takes eons to read. There is no rush to understand it all, no need to grasp every detail. It is enough to simply be here, to feel the sun on your face and the wind in your hair, and to know that you are standing in the presence of something very old and very wise. The granite does not demand anything from us. It simply exists, a testament to the enduring power of the natural world. As we descend from the high towers, the path winds through groves of ancient trees, their branches draped in long, flowing strands of pale green lichen. This lichen, often called old man's beard, sways gently in the breeze, catching the fading light and giving the forest a soft, ethereal quality. The ground is soft here, cushioned by a thick layer of fallen leaves and needles, and the sound of your footsteps is muffled, as if the forest itself is trying to keep a secret. There is a sense of being sheltered, of being held in the protective embrace of the trees, while the great granite peaks loom overhead, watching over the world like silent guardians. The transition from the high rock to the sheltered valleys is a gentle one, a softening of the landscape that mirrors the settling of the mind. The air is richer here, filled with the scent of damp moss and the earthy aroma of decaying wood, a smell that is both ancient and full of life. Small streams trickle through the undergrowth, their voices a soft, melodic burble that provides a soothing soundtrack to the journey. The water is clear and cold, tumbling over smooth stones and mossy logs, heading down toward the great lakes that lie at the feet of the mountains. In these lower reaches, the light lingers a little longer, filtering through the canopy in long, Slanted rays, it catches the wings of a small bird as it flutters from branch to branch, and illuminates the delicate patterns of a fern unfurling in the shade. Everything here is in a state of quiet growth, a slow and steady unfolding that happens far away from the noise and hurry of modern life. It is a place to breathe deeply, to let the shoulders drop and the tension melt away, replaced by the calm and steady rhythm of the natural world. As the sun finally dips below the horizon, the granite towers are the last things to hold onto the light. They glow with a faint, ghostly luminescence standing out against the deepening blue of the twilight sky. The stars begin to appear, one by one flickering into existence like tiny lanterns hung in the vault of the heavens. The air is cold now, a crisp and invigorating chill that makes the warmth of a fire seem like the most wonderful thing in the world. But even in the cold, there is a sense of peace, a feeling that the world is exactly as it should be. The towers are settling into the night, their great shadows stretching out across the land like long, dark fingers. The wind has fallen away completely, leaving a silence so profound you can hear the beating of your own heart. It is a time for rest, for sinking into the soft embrace of the earth and letting the mind wander through the vast, quiet spaces of the mountains. The granite is cold to the touch now, but it still holds the memory of the sun's warmth, a lingering heat that radiates slowly into the dark. We move now toward the edges of the ice, where the mountains meet the great glaciers that have shaped them for so long. The transition is subtle, a gradual cooling of the air and a change in the color of the light, as the gray of the granite gives way to the brilliant, shimmering white of the frozen rivers. The sound of the world changes too, from the rustle of the forest to the deep, resonant creak of the ice as it moves, ever so slowly toward the sea. It is a soft transition, like the closing of a door at the end of a long day, leading us into a realm of blue shadows and frozen silence. The stars are bright now, casting a pale, silvery light over the landscape, turning the granite towers into dark, jagged silhouettes against the Milky Way. The world is very still, very quiet and very old. As we leave the towers behind and move toward the ice, the air becomes even calmer, a stillness that settles deep in the bones and invites a long, dreamless sleep. The great stones remain, steadfast and silent as the night deepens and the world turns slowly toward the dawn, wrapped in the cold, clear beauty of the end of the earth. The first light of morning does not arrive with a shout, but rather as a soft, pearlescent glow that spills over the jagged edges of the horizon, turning the deep indigo of the night into a pale, dusty violet as the stars begin to fade, one by one like embers cooling in a hearth. The vast expanse of the southern ice field reveals itself in the quiet clarity of the dawn. It is a world made of stillness and slow, rhythmic motion, a place where time is measured not in minutes or hours, but in the steady, patient flow of ice toward the sea. Imagine the air here, so crisp and clean that it feels like drinking from a cold mountain spring, filling your lungs with a freshness that carries the faint, sweet scent of ancient snow and the mineral tang of crushed stone. This is a landscape of profound white and impossible blues, a frozen sea that stretches out across the high plateaus of the Andes like a heavy velvet blanket the ice field is a remnant of a much older world. A quiet giant that has rested here for thousands of years, cradled by the granite peaks that stand as silent sentinels around its edges. Under the soft light of the rising sun, the surface of the ice begins to shimmer, reflecting the pale gold of the sky in a way that makes the ground feel as though it is glowing from within. There is a deep, resonant silence here, the kind of silence that allows you to hear the softest sigh of the wind as it brushes against the snow, or the distant, muffled creak of the ice as it settles under its own immense weight. To look upon the ice field is to see a tapestry of textures, from the smooth, windswept plains of the interior to the chaotic, beautiful jumble of crevices that mark the edges of the glaciers. These cracks in the ice are not sharp or frightening, but rather deep, glowing veins of azure and turquoise, where the light is trapped and scattered, creating a soft radiance that seems to pulse with a gentle, slow heartbeat. The blue of the ice is unlike any other color on Earth. It is the color of deep water, of twilight shadows, and of the sky just before the stars appear. It is a color that invites the eyes to rest, to wander slowly over the curves and hollows of the frozen landscape without any need to hurry. As the sun climbs a little higher, casting long, soft shadows across the snow, we can begin to understand the journey of a single snowflake in this high, cold kingdom. It falls softly, landing with a weightless touch upon the surface of the field, joining billions of others in a quiet accumulation. Over the years, these flakes are pressed together, losing their delicate crystalline shapes as they are transformed into dense, clear ice. This process is slow and rhythmic, a long, cooling breath that turns the softest powder into the foundation of the continent. There is a comfort in this transformation, a sense of permanence and peace, as the ephemeral snow becomes a part of something vast and enduring. The ice field is not a static thing, though its movements are far too slow for the human eye to catch in a single moment. It flows like a river, but a river that moves with the patience of the mountains themselves. Down in the valleys, where the ice begins its long descent toward the fjords and lakes, the glaciers move with a graceful, heavy dignity. They carve the land with a gentle persistence, polishing the granite walls until they are smooth to the touch, leaving behind valleys that are shaped like wide, welcoming bowls. You can almost feel the weight of it, a steady, grounding presence that anchors the landscape, providing a sense of stability and calm to everything it touches. Along the margins of the ice, where the white world meets the dark green of the southern forests, there is a soft transition of colors and sounds. The wind, passing through the needles of the ancient trees, carries the cool breath of the glacier into the woods, while the smell of damp earth and moss drifts upward to meet the ice. It is a meeting of two worlds, both quiet and both ancient, existing in a perfect, balanced harmony. In these borderlands, the meltwater begins its journey, trickling out from beneath the ice in small, silver streams that hum a low, melodic song as they tumble over smooth pebbles and through beds of soft, green lichen. The sound of this water is a constant, gentle companion, a soft bubbling that provides a background hum to the stillness of the ice field. It is the sound of the earth waking up, of the ice giving back to the land in a slow, generous offering. As these small streams join together, they form larger rivers that milk the stone, carrying fine particles of rock that turn the water a milky, opaque turquoise. These glacial rivers move with a soft, swishing sound, winding their way through the valleys like ribbons of silk, heading toward the Great Lakes that sit like jewels at the feet of the mountains. In the heart of the ice field, away from the edges and the forests, the world is simplified into two elements: the white of the ice and the blue of the sky. There is a profound simplicity here, a stripping away of the unnecessary until only the essential remains. It is a place where the mind can drift, unburdened by the complexities of the world below, floating on the vast, open spaces like a bird on a thermal. The horizon is long and curved, showing the gentle roundness of the earth, and the light is so soft that it seems to blur the lines between the ground and the air, creating a sense of being suspended in a dream of frost and light. As we move across this frozen expanse, we might see the patterns left by the wind, delicate ripples in the snow that look like the surface of a calm sea. The wind here is a sculptor, working with a light and steady hand to create shapes that are both fleeting and beautiful. It whisks the loose powder into soft drifts, tucking them into the lee of the granite crags, and polishes the harder ice until it shines like a mirror. There is no harshness in this wind, only a persistent, cooling touch that keeps the world in a state of quiet, elegant motion. The history of this ice is written in layers, like the pages of a very old and very long book. Each layer represents a season, a quiet winter of falling snow and a cool summer of settling. Within these layers are tiny bubbles of air, trapped long ago, preserving the atmosphere of a different time. It is a library of the earth's breath, held in a cold, safe embrace. Waiting in the silence, there is something deeply reassuring about this preservation, a sense that the past is not lost, but merely resting, tucked away in the blue shadows of the glaciers. As the afternoon light begins to stretch and soften, turning the white plains into a canvas of pale rose and warm amber, the ice field seems to settle even further into its midday slumber. The heat of the sun, though gentle, creates a thin veil of mist that rises from the surface, softening the sharp edges of the surrounding peaks and bathing the world in a hazy, golden glow. This mist moves slowly, drifting like wood smoke across the ice, disappearing as quietly as it arrived. It is a moment of pure, unhurried beauty, a time to simply be, to breathe in the cool air and feel the immense, quiet power of the landscape. In the lower reaches of the glaciers, where the ice meets the water of the fjords, the transition is marked by the birth of icebergs. These are not violent events, but rather the natural conclusion of the ice's long journey. With a sound like a low, rolling thud of a distant drum, a piece of the glacier eases away, sliding into the water with a graceful splash. The ripples spread out in perfect circles, rocking the new iceberg as it begins its independent life, floating like a small, crystalline island in the dark. Still water, these bergs are sculpted by the waves and the air into fantastic shapes, archways and spires of glass that glow with a deep, inner light. Watching these icebergs drift is a lesson in patience. They move with the tides and the currents, slow and stately, their reflections shimmering in the water below. The water in these fjords is often so still that it acts as a perfect mirror, doubling the beauty of the ice and the sky, creating a world where it is hard to tell where the earth ends and the heavens begin. The only sound is the soft lap of water against the ice, a rhythmic, soothing sound that lulls the senses and quiets the spirit. As we look closer at the surface of the glacier, we might notice the fine, dark lines of moraine, ribbons of stone and grit that the ice has gathered on its journey. These stones are held in a firm, cold grip carried along for miles until they are eventually deposited at the glacier's end. This is the slow work of the world, the steady movement of the mountains being ground down and moved, grain by grain, to the sea. There is a great, quiet dignity in this process, a sense of purpose that requires no haste, only the steady, relentless flow of the ice. The wildlife that visits the edges of the ice field is equally quiet and adapted to the stillness. A solitary condor might circle high above, its broad wings catching the cold currents of air as it looks down upon the white expanse. It does not flap its wings, but glides with a graceful efficiency, a dark silhouette against the pale sky. On the ground, near the rocky nunataks that poke through the ice like islands, a small bird might flit between the stones, its chirping sound clear and bright in the thin air. These lives are small and precious, tucked into the corners of the vast landscape, thriving in the cool, clean quiet. Imagine the feeling of the sun on your face as you stand at the edge of this frozen world. It is a gentle warmth, a soft contrast to the cool air that rises from the ice. You can hear the faint, musical tinkling of melting frost, a sound like tiny bells ringing in the distance. The ground beneath your feet is solid and ancient, a mixture of hard rock and compressed snow that has stood the test of eons. There is no need to move, no need to do anything but stand and witness the slow, beautiful turning of the day. The southern ice field is a place of refuge, a sanctuary of cold and light where the noise of the modern world cannot reach. It is a place that reminds us of the scale of the earth, of the long, slow cycles that govern the life of our planet. In the presence of such vastness, the mind finds a natural rhythm, a steady beat that matches the slow flow of the glaciers and the quiet rising of the sun. It is a place to rest, to let go of the day's worries and sink into the deep, cool peace of the ice. As the sun begins its slow descent toward the western horizon, the colors of the ice field change once more. The pale gold turns to a deep, warm orange, and the shadows in the crevices stretch out, turning a rich, velvety purple. The air grows cooler, a soft, refreshing chill that signals the approach of evening. The mist that rose in the afternoon settles back down, clinging to the hollows of the ice like a soft, white fleece. The world is preparing for another night of cold, clear stars, and the silent, steady movement of the ice. The transition from day to evening is a slow, graceful fading of light. The peaks of the Andes, which stood so sharp and clear in the morning, now become soft silhouettes against a sky of darkening lilac. The ice field itself seems to absorb the last of the light, glowing with a soft, ethereal radiance before finally surrendering to the shadows. It is a time of deep reflection, a moment to appreciate the quiet endurance of the frozen landscape and the steady, rhythmic life of the ice. Down in the valleys, the rivers continue their soft song, the water flowing cold and clear toward the distant sea. The icebergs in the fjords settle into the dark water, their white shapes ghost-like in the gathering gloom. The forests at the edge of the ice grow still, the wind dying down to a mere whisper among the leaves. Everything is moving toward a state of rest, a gentle closing of the day's eyes as the world prepares for the long, quiet hours of the night. The southern ice field is not just a place of ice and stone, but a place of dreams and stillness. It is a landscape that invites us to slow down, to breathe deeply and to find comfort in the steady, unchanging nature of the earth. As we watch the last sliver of sun disappear behind the mountains, we are left with a sense of profound peace, a feeling of being cradled in the cool, soft arms of the end of the world. The cold is not a harsh thing here, but a clean, bracing presence that clarifies the senses and quiets the mind. It is the cold of a fresh pillow, of a crisp linen sheet, a coolness that invites sleep and deep, restorative rest as the first stars begin to twinkle in the darkening sky, their light reflected in the still, frozen plains below. We can feel the weight of the day lifting, replaced by the light, airy silence of the ice. The ice field, in its vast and quiet majesty, continues its slow, patient work, unaffected by the passing of hours or the changing of seasons. It is a constant, a steady heartbeat at the bottom of the world, providing a sense of continuity and calm that stretches back into the distant past and forward into the unknown future. In this place, there is only the ice, the sky, and the deep, resonant silence that connects them both. As we settle into the quiet of the evening, the memory of the blue ice and the white snow lingers like a soft melody, a soothing refrain that carries us towards sleep. The world is vast and we are a part of it, held safely in the rhythmic pulse of the glaciers and the steady turning of the stars. The air is still, the ice is quiet, and the night is a vast, dark ocean of peace. The light has faded now, leaving only the soft, silver glow of the moon to illuminate the frozen landscape. The ice field looks like a sea of liquid silver, its ripples and waves frozen in time, reflecting the celestial light in a way that is both haunting and beautiful. The shadows are deep and soft, like pools of dark water, and the air is so still that you could hear a single snowflake land on the crust of the ice. It is a world of perfect, undisturbed rest, a place where the very concept of time seems to dissolve into the cold, clear air. In this stillness, the mind can finally let go, drifting like one of the icebergs in the fjord, moving slowly and aimlessly through the dark, quiet waters of sleep. There is no destination, only the journey, the slow and steady movement toward the heart of the night. The ice field is a guardian, a silent protector of the Earth's most ancient secrets, and in its presence we are safe to close our eyes and surrender to the deep, cool embrace of the dark. The rhythms of the ice are the rhythms of the earth itself, slow, steady, and infinitely patient. They remind us that there is a time for everything, a time for movement and a time for rest, a time for light and a time for shadow. As we drift further into the quiet of the night, we carry with us the peace of the southern ice field, a peace that is as deep as the crevices and as vast as the white plains that stretch out beneath the stars. The silence of the ice field is not a hollow thing, but rather a soft, expectant weight that eventually gives way to the first faint breath of the moving air. As we leave the stillness of the high glaciers behind, we begin to feel a subtle stirring, a gentle pressure against the cheek that signals our arrival into the domain of the great southern winds. In this part of the world, the wind is not merely weather, but a constant companion, a presence as solid and enduring as the granite peaks themselves. It begins as a whisper among the jagged ridges, a long, low sigh that travels across thousands of miles of open ocean before it ever touches land. Imagine the vastness of the Pacific, where the water meets the sky in a seamless curve of gray and blue, and the air moves freely, gathering strength and moisture as it rolls toward the edge of the continent. By the time it reaches the shores of Patagonia, it has become a rhythmic force, a steady pulse that shapes everything it touches. It flows over the coastline like water, pouring into the deep fjords and winding through the narrow valleys, carrying with it the scent of salt spray and cold, wet stone. There is a peculiar softness to this wind when it first arrives, a coolness that feels like clean linen against the skin. It does not rush or startle. It simply exists, a continuous stream of air that has been traveling since the beginning of time. As the wind moves inland, it encounters the great forests of southern beach, where the trees have learned to live in a slow, graceful dance with the moving air. The branches do not fight the breeze, but rather lean into it, growing in long, sweeping curves that mirror the direction of the gale. These are the flag trees, their trunks twisted into elegant spirals, their limbs reaching out like streamers caught in a permanent current. If you were to walk among them, you would hear the sound of 1,000 wooden chimes, a dry, rhythmic creaking as the old wood rubs together. The forest floor is a thick carpet of moss and fallen leaves, damp and springy underfoot, muffling the sound of your footsteps so that only the song of the wind remains. The air here smells of damp earth and rotting bark, a rich, dark fragrance that feels grounding and ancient. The wind filters through the tiny, serrated leaves, creating a shimmering light that dances across the ferns. It is a slow, hypnotic movement, a gentle swaying that invites the mind to wander and the body to rest. There is no urgency in the forest, only the patient endurance of the trees and the steady, guiding hand of the air. Beyond the shelter of the woods, the wind meets the high granite walls of the mountains, and here its voice changes to a deeper, more resonant tone. It hums as it passes through the narrow couloirs and whistles softly across the polished faces of the towers. This is the sound of the earth breathing, a low frequency that vibrates in the chest and settles the spirit. The granite is cool and smooth to the touch, worn down by eons of wind-blown grit until it shines like silk in the afternoon light. You might notice how the clouds move here, not in scattered patches but in long, elegant lenses that hover over the summits. These lenticular clouds are shaped by the wind as it is forced upward by the mountains, cooling and condensing into smooth, white discs that look like celestial architecture. They sit motionless against the deep blue of the sky, even as the air rushes through them at great speed. It is a visual paradox, a scene of immense energy held in a state of perfect, quiet stillness. The sunlight catches the edges of these clouds, turning them to soft shades of peach and gold, a warm glow that contrasts with the icy blue of the glaciers below. In the valleys, the wind finds the water, and the lakes of Patagonia respond with a language of their own. The surfaces of these great bodies of water are rarely still. They ripple and churn, turning from deep turquoise to a frothy, wind-swept white. The sound of the waves lapping against the pebbled shores is a constant, rhythmic lullaby, a repetitive motion that draws the eyes toward the horizon. The spray rises in fine mists, catching the light and creating fleeting rainbows that vanish as quickly as they appear. If you were to sit by the edge of a glacial lake, you would feel the fine moisture on your face, a cool refreshment that smells of minerals and ancient ice. The stones on the beach are rounded and smooth, polished by the tireless work of the water and the wind, their colors ranging from deep charcoal to pale, milky quartz. You might pick one up, feeling its weight and its coolness in your palm, a small piece of the mountain that has been shaped by the elements over centuries. The wind carries the sound of the water deep into the hills, a white noise that blankets the landscape and quiets the thoughts. As we move further east, the mountains begin to recede, and the wind spills out onto the vast, rolling plains of the Pampa. Here there is nothing to break the flow of the air, and it stretches out in every direction, a sea of golden grass that ripples like the ocean. The Pampa is a place of immense horizontal space, where the sky feels larger than the earth and the wind is the only clock. The grass is tall and wiry, bending low in long, rhythmic waves that travel for miles across the horizon. The sound here is different. It is a dry, whispering hiss, the sound of millions of blades of grass brushing against one another. The air is drier now, carrying the scent of sun-baked earth and wild herbs. It is a warm, tawny smell that speaks of summer and long, slow afternoons. The light on the Pampa is golden and soft, casting long shadows that stretch across the land as the sun begins its slow descent. Everything here is in motion, yet it feels profoundly peaceful. A landscape that is constantly being groomed and tended by the invisible hands of the air. In the small, scattered homesteads of the Pampa, the wind is a fundamental part of daily life, a force that dictates the rhythm of the chores and the structure of the buildings. The houses are often built in the lee of small hills or protected by thick rows of planted poplars that shiver and groan in the breeze. Inside, the walls are thick, and the sound of the wind becomes a distant, comforting roar like the sound of a far-off sea. A fire might be crackling in the hearth, the smell of wood smoke mingling with the scent of wool and leather. Life here is measured by the steady turning of a windmill, its blades spinning slowly to draw water from deep underground. The clinking of the metal, the creak of the wood, and the steady hum of the wind create a symphony of the home front, a domestic peace that is protected by the very elements that challenge it. There is a sense of being tucked away, safe and warm, while the great southern air continues its journey across the plains. The wind does not feel like an intruder, but like a guardian, a constant presence that keeps the world fresh and alive. Even the animals of Patagonia have found their own harmony with the moving air. The guanacos, with their long necks and soft, cinnamon-colored fur stand on the ridges with their heads held high, letting the wind ruffle their coats. They move with a quiet grace, their hooves making no sound on the dusty earth, blending perfectly into the muted colors of the scrubland. Above them, the Andean condor rises on the thermals, its massive wings held steady as it glides on the currents. The bird does not flap. It simply lines into the wind, rising higher and higher until it is a mere speck against the clouds. It is a master of the air, finding the hidden paths and invisible rivers that flow through the sky. Watching the condor, one feels a sense of lightness, a release from the weight of the world, as if we too could be lifted by the breeze and carried over the mountains. The wind is a bridge between the earth and the sky, a medium through which all life in this region communicates and moves. As the day begins to fade, the wind often loses its sharp edge, softening into a gentle evening breeze that carries the coolness of the approaching night. The colors of the landscape deepen. The gold of the grass turns to a soft violet, and the granite peaks glow with a final, lingering embers of red. The air becomes stiller, more reflective, as if the continent itself is taking a long, slow breath before sleep. The sound of the wind drops to a murmur, a quiet conversation between the trees and the stars. You can feel the temperature falling, a crispness that makes the warmth of a blanket feel all the more inviting. The vastness of the sky begins to fill with stars. One by one, their light steady and unblinking in the clear. Thin air, there is no dust here to blur the view. Only the purity of the atmosphere and the immense silence that follows the wind. This wind, which has traveled across the sea and over the ice, through the forests and across the plains, finally settles into the hollows of the land. It finds the quiet corners of the fjords and the sheltered valleys between the hills, resting in the stillness of the evening. It is a traveler that never truly stops. But in these moments of transition, it offers a pause, a space for the world to grow quiet. The rhythmic pulse of the air becomes a slow, steady heartbeat, a reminder of the enduring nature of the earth. We feel the weight of our own bodies, settled and secure as we listen to the last whispers of the breeze outside the window. The world is large and the wind is vast, but here in the quiet of the evening, everything feels close and intimate. The movement of the air has a way of clearing the mind, washing away the clutter of the day and leaving only the essential peace of the present moment. It is a cleansing force, a breath of life that renews the landscape and the spirit alike. As we lie in the darkness, the memory of the wind becomes a soothing rhythm, a gentle swaying that carries us towards sleep. We think of the flag trees, leaning into the breeze, and the condors, soaring on the currents, and we feel a sense of belonging to this wild, wind-swept world. The boundaries between the self and the environment begin to soften, melting into the steady flow of the atmosphere. We are part of the movement, part of the stillness, a small point of consciousness in a vast and beautiful universe. The wind that never stops is not a storm, but a song, a long, melodic composition that has no beginning and no end. It is the music of the spheres brought down to earth, a harmony of salt and ice, grass and stone in its presence. We find a peculiar kind of freedom, a release from the static and the fixed. We learn to move with the changes, to find grace in the laning and strength in the flow. The air is a reminder that nothing is truly still, yet everything can be at peace. As the night deepens, the wind continues its long journey toward the east, leaving us in the quiet cradle of the valley, where the only sound is the soft, rhythmic breathing of the world. In this sanctuary of the south, the wind serves as a gentle reminder of the interconnectedness of all things. The moisture it carries from the ocean feeds the glaciers, which in turn feed the rivers that water the plains. The seeds of the beech trees are carried on the breeze to new clearings, and the dust of the mountains is spread across the pampa to enrich the soil. It is a grand, circular system of giving and receiving, a slow-motion exchange that sustains the life of the continent. We feel the harmony of this process in the coolness of the air and the softness of the light. It is a world that works in perfect, unhurried balance where every gust of wind and every moment of calm has its place and its purpose. As we settle further into the quiet, the vast distances of Patagonia seem to shrink, becoming a cozy, enclosed space defined by the sound of the air. The darkness outside is not a void, but a rich, velvety presence, filled with the sense of the earth and the memory of the sun. The wind, now a mere ghost of its daytime self, brushes past the eaves of the house with a sound like silk on silk. It is a lullaby for the tired, a soft word spoken into the ear of the night. We drift on this current, letting the steady pulse of the atmosphere guide us into a deeper state of rest. The world is wide, the mountains are high, and the wind is eternal. But here, in the warmth of our own presence, we are safe and still. The stars above the pampa seem to flicker in time with the moving air, a celestial dance that mirrors the swaying of the grass below. The Milky Way stretches across the zenith like a river of silver mist, a path of light that leads into the infinite. The wind carries our gaze upward, inviting us to contemplate the scale of the cosmos from the comfort of our earthly perch. There is a profound sense of perspective to be found here, a realization that we are small, but we are whole. The wind that brushes the peaks of the Andes is the same wind that touches our window, a single thread of air that connects the highest heights to the quietest depths. In the soft glow of the starlight, the landscape takes on a dreamlike quality, the sharp edges of the granite softening into shadows and the golden plains turning to silver. The wind is a whisper now, a secret shared between the earth and the sky. It tells of the long road traveled and the long road yet to come, a story of endurance and grace. We listen with our hearts, feeling the resonance of the narrative in the very marrow of our bones. The story of the wind is the story of life itself, ever moving, ever changing, yet always returning to the same fundamental peace. As we prepare to transition from the realm of the wind to the realm of the deep waters, we carry this peace with us. The air has prepared the way, clearing the path and settling the spirit. The transition is as natural as the wind dying down at dusk, a slow fading of one sensation into another. We move from the expansive heights of the atmosphere to the cool, quiet depths of the southern channels, where the water is as still as the air was active. The memory of the wind lingers like a soft echo, a rhythmic reminder of the world's vitality. The silence that now fills the room is a rich and fertile thing, a garden of quiet where dreams can take root. The wind has done its work, and now it is time for the stillness to do its own. We feel the weight of the blankets, the softness of the pillow, and the steady beat of our own hearts. The world outside continues its slow, majestic rotation, the wind ever present but now distant, a background hum to the theater of sleep. We are tucked away in the heart of Patagonia, protected by the mountains and blessed by the air. The next stage of our journey will take us into the labyrinth of the fjords, where the sea reaches deep into the heart of the land. But for now, we linger in this moment of perfect equilibrium, where the wind has whispered us to the edge of rest. The air is cool, the night is long, and the peace of the southern continent is as vast as the sky itself. We let go of the day, letting the last remnants of the wind carry away any lingering thoughts, leaving us clear and calm. The journey continues, but the pace is slow, and the destination is always peace. As the final embers of the hearth fade into the softest gray ash, we turn our gaze away from the flickering light of the indoor fire and look toward the vast, open rolling hills of the Patagonian steppe, where the grass is the color of pale honey and the wind sings a song that has no beginning and no end. Here the land stretches out in long, undulating waves of gold and dusty green, a quiet ocean of earth that seems to breathe with the slow rhythm of the turning world. The air is crisp and carries the scent of dry earth and wild herbs, a clean, sharp fragrance that clears the mind and settles the heart into a state of deep, unhurried stillness in this wide space. Time does not move in hours or minutes, but in the long shadows that stretch across the plains as the sun makes its gentle journey toward the horizon, painting the granite peaks in shades of violet and soft rose. Across these golden plains move the Guanacos, the elegant, slender-necked residents of the high desert. Their coats a warm shade of cinnamon that blends perfectly with the sun-drenched soil. They move with a quiet, swaying grace, their padded feet stepping softly over the stones and the low-growing shrubs, making almost no sound at all as they navigate the vastness of their home. Imagine the texture of their wool, thick and soft against the biting chill of the mountain breeze, a natural insulation that keeps them warm and safe through the long, quiet nights under a canopy of stars. They gather in small, peaceful groups, their large, dark eyes watchful but calm, reflecting the immense sky above them as they pause to graze on the hardy bunch grasses that grow in the shelter of the rocks. There is a profound sense of belonging in their movements, a harmony with the land that comes from generations of living in balance with the wind and the light. And as you watch them, your own breathing begins to slow, matching the steady, rhythmic pace of their wandering. The sound of the steppe is a low, constant hum, the voice of the wind moving through the dry stalks of the quaron grass, creating a rustling whisper that acts as a natural lullaby for all who dwell here. It is a sound that does not demand attention, but rather surrounds you like a soft, heavy blanket muffling the noises of the distant world and leaving only the pure, resonant tones of the wilderness. Occasionally, a young guanaco will let out a soft, high-pitched call, a gentle sound that carries through the clear air before fading into the silence, a reminder of the life that thrives in this seemingly empty space. The light here is soft and diffused, filtered through the thin, high clouds that drift like tufts of sheep's wool across a sky so blue it feels like looking into the depths of a still, clear lake. Everything is bathed in a golden glow, a warmth that radiates from the earth itself, inviting you to simply exist in this moment, free from the weight of worry or the hurry of the day. High above the golden hills, where the granite spires of the Andes touch the very edge of the heavens, the Andean condor glides on invisible currents of air, its massive wings outspread and motionless. There is no effort in its flight, no frantic beating of wings, only a majestic, soaring stillness that commands the sky with a quiet, ancient dignity. The condor is a creature of the heights, a silent observer of the world below, finding the rising thermals of warm air that lift it higher and higher until it is but a small, dark speck against the infinite blue. From this vantage point, the world is a tapestry of silver rivers, emerald forests and white glaciers, all woven together in a grand, peaceful design that has remained unchanged for eons. The bird moves with the wind, not against it, allowing the natural forces of the earth to carry it along in a slow, circular dance that mirrors the rotation of the planets and the cycling of the seasons. As the condor soars, the shadow it casts on the ground below flickers briefly over the grazing guanacos, a passing moment of connection between the earth and the sky. The guanacos do not startle. They simply lift their heads for a moment, their long ears twitching in the breeze, before returning to their quiet task of feeding on the earth's bounty. There is a deep, unspoken trust between the creatures of Patagonia and the land they inhabit, a recognition that the mountains will always provide shelter and the plains will always provide nourishment. The rocks, weathered by centuries of wind and rain, stand as silent sentinels, their surfaces covered in orange and lime-green lichens that grow with agonizing slowness, adding tiny splashes of color to the gray and tan landscape. Every element of this place, from the smallest blade of grass to the highest mountain peak, is part of a slow, deliberate process of being, a continuous flow of existence that requires nothing more than presence. Think of the quietude found in the light of a great boulder, where the wind is reduced to a soft murmur and the sun warms the dark stone until it feels like a living thing against your back. In this sheltered nook, the world feels small and safe, a private sanctuary in the midst of the vastness, where you can close your eyes and listen to the heartbeat of the earth. The smell of the earth here is rich and ancient, a mixture of minerals and dried vegetation that speaks of deep time and the slow turning of the ages. It is a grounding scent, one that anchors you to the present moment and allows the distractions of the mind to drift away like the morning mist rising from a mountain lake. Here, in the heart of Guanaco and Condor country, the only requirement is to be still, to listen and to let the peace of the landscape seep into your very bones. The colors of the late afternoon begin to deepen, the gold of the grass turning to a burnished copper, while the shadows in the valleys turn a soft, velvety indigo. The guanacos begin to move toward their resting places, their silhouettes sharp against the cooling sky as they find level ground where they can huddle together for warmth. They lie down with a slow, heavy grace, tucking their legs beneath them and resting their long necks, their breath creating small, white puffs of steam in the cooling air. The world is settling down, drawing in its breath as the light fades, preparing for the long, quiet vigil of the night. The condor, too, finds its roost on a high, inaccessible ledge of granite, folding its great wings and settling into the stillness of the stone, becoming one with the mountain as the first stars begin to twinkle in the darkening dome above. There is a profound comfort in the reliability of this cycle, the way the day gives way to the evening with such gentle inevitability. Never rushing, never faltering, the vastness of Patagonia does not feel lonely. It feels like a wide, open embrace, a place where there is room for every thought to expand and then dissipate into the clear. Cold air, the wind, which was a constant companion throughout the day, begins to soften into a light breeze. A rhythmic sighing that moves through the canyons and over the ridges like a hand smoothing a rumpled sheet. As the temperature drops, the earth seems to contract slightly, holding onto the heat of the day, creating a lingering warmth that radiates from the rocks and the soil. A final gift before the frost begins to form its delicate, crystalline patterns on the leaves of the shrubs. In the distance, the glaciers remain silent and white, their ancient ice glowing with a faint, ethereal light that seems to come from within the frozen depths. They are the quiet architects of this land, the slow-moving giants that have carved the valleys and polished the stones over thousands of years. And their presence is a constant reminder of the beauty of patience. The water that melts from their edges flows in narrow, crystal-clear streams that meander through the steppe, providing a cool drink for the guanacos and a silver thread that connects the high peaks to the low plains. The sound of the water is a delicate tinkling, like small bells ringing in the distance, adding a melodic layer to the symphony of the wind and the grass. It is a sound that invites sleep, a repetitive, soothing melody that washes over the landscape and carries away the last remnants of the day's activity. As we linger in this twilight space, the boundaries between the self and the land begin to soften, and you may find yourself feeling as light as the downy feathers of the condor or as grounded as the heavy granite of the mountains. The air is so still now that you can almost hear the silence, a thick, textured quiet that feels like a physical presence, wrapping around you and drawing you deeper into a state of relaxation. The stars are becoming brighter now, thousands upon thousands of tiny, glowing lanterns scattered across the velvet sky, marking the paths of ancient constellations that have guided travelers for centuries. There is no map needed here, no destination to reach, only the steady, calming presence of the night and the knowledge that the sun will return in its own time, as it always has and always will. The guanacos are now still, their forms blending into the darkness of the hills, their heartbeats slow and steady as they drift into a deep, restorative sleep. The condor is a shadow among shadows, safe in its high fortress, dreaming of the thermals that will carry it aloft once more when the morning light warms the air. The steppe is a place of rest, a vast cradle that holds all life in a gentle, unwavering grip, ensuring that every creature and every stone is exactly where it needs to be. The quiet is absolute, a peaceful blanket that covers the entire end of the continent, from the stormy capes of the south to the high deserts of the north, uniting the land in a single, silent breath. As the last glow of the sun disappears behind the jagged teeth of the Andes, the world is left in a state of perfect equilibrium, a balance of dark and light, of cold and warmth, of movement and stillness. You are a part of this balance, a quiet observer in a world that moves at the speed of the growing grass and the shifting ice. There is nothing left to do but to let go, to allow the rhythm of the Patagonian night to take hold, and to sink into the softness of the dark. The journey through the steppe has brought us to a place of profound calm, a destination that is not a point on a map but a state of being, where the mind is as clear as the mountain air and the spirit is as vast as the open plains. The hills are sleeping now, and the wind has whispered its final secrets to the stones, leaving the world in a state of expectant peace. The silence is not an absence of sound, but a fullness of presence, a rich and nourishing quiet that feeds the soul and prepares it for the dreams to come. As we prepare to move our focus from the living breath of the animals to the ancient, frozen breath of the great ice fields, we carry this stillness with us, a golden light held within the heart, lighting the way forward through the cool, dark corridors of the night. The transition is seamless, a gentle shift from the warmth of the cinnamon fir to the cool, blue depths of the glaciers, a movement that is as natural and unhurried as the turning of a page in a well-loved book. The stars continue their slow, silent watch, their light reflecting off the patches of snow that linger in the shadows of the rocks, creating a landscape of silver and shadow that is both alien and deeply familiar. In this place, at the very edge of the world, everything is simplified, reduced to its most basic and beautiful elements: earth, sky, water, and breath. It is a place where you can finally rest, where the weight of the world is lifted and replaced by the lightness of the wind. The guanacos dream of green valleys, the condors dream of the infinite sky, and the land itself dreams of the slow, steady pulse of the universe, a dream that we are now invited to join as we settle deeper into the quiet, into the dark and into the soft, welcoming embrace of the Patagonian night. The path ahead is white and crystalline, a world of blue shadows and ancient echoes that wait for us with a patient, frozen grace. We move toward it not with haste, but with a slow, wandering curiosity, letting the peace of the steppe guide us toward the heart of the ice. The air grows cooler, the silence grows deeper, and the world becomes a sanctuary of frost and light, a place where the passage of time is marked only by the slow creeping of the glaciers and the steady heartbeat of the earth. We are moving toward the stillness of the great ice, leaving the golden hills behind, but carrying their warmth within us as we drift toward the quiet, frozen wonders that lie just beyond the horizon, where the light is soft and the rest is eternal. The air here carries a different weight, a damp and salt-kissed coolness that settles upon the skin like a heavy wool blanket, signaling our arrival at the edge of the great western fjords. As we move further into this labyrinth of water and stone, the vast openness of the plains fades away, replaced by the intimate embrace of steep emerald cliffs and the rhythmic, patient pulse of the Pacific tide. The transition is seamless, a slow softening of the world where the harsh winds of the high peaks are filtered through ancient forests, arriving here only as a gentle sigh that stirs the surface of the deep. Dark water, the fjords are like long, winding hallways of sapphire and slate, carved over eons by the slow, deliberate movement of ice, and now filled with a stillness so profound it feels as though the earth itself is holding its breath. We glide forward, the hull of our imagined vessel parting the water with a sound no louder than a whisper. leaving behind a trail of silver ripples that catch the pale, filtered light of a sun that seems content to remain behind a veil of soft, pearl-colored clouds. Imagine the scent of the air in this place. A fragrance composed of crushed ferns, wet granite and the sharp, clean brine of the sea, all mingling together in the cool mist that clings to the hillsides. There is a richness to the dampness here, a sense of life that thrives in the shadows and the spray, where every surface is upholstered in a thick, vibrant carpet of moss. This moss is a deep, saturated green, so plush and saturated with rainwater that it looks like velvet draped over the shoulders of the mountains. If you were to reach out and touch it, your fingers would sink into a cold, springy cushion releasing a faint, earthy aroma of ancient peat and fresh rain. The trees that cling to these vertical walls are the Nothofagus. The southern beeches, their trunks gnarled and twisted by centuries of leaning into the wind, their small, dark leaves shimmering with droplets of moisture that fall, one by one, into the quiet depths below. Each drop makes a tiny, melodic chime as it hits the water, a small note in a symphony of silence that stretches for hundreds of miles. The water of the fjords is a character unto itself, deep and mysterious, reflecting the towering walls of stone with such clarity that it is difficult to tell where the mountain ends and the sea begins. In the shallows, the water is a translucent turquoise, colored by the fine silt of glacial flour that has traveled down from the high ice fields. But as the bottom drops away into the abyss, the color shifts to a profound, ink-like navy. It is a calm, steady body of water, protected from the fury of the open ocean by 1,000 scattered islands and rocky outcroppings that stand like sentinels at the gates of the continent. Down here beneath the surface, the world is even quieter, a realm of giant kelp forests that sway in the slow currents like tall amber trees in a liquid wind. The kelp fronds are long and leathery, glowing with a golden inner light where the sun manages to pierce the depths, providing a soft, sheltered nursery for the small creatures of the sea who live out their days in the rhythmic swaying of the tide. As we continue our journey deeper into the heart of the western coast, we notice how the light begins to change, becoming more diffused and ethereal as it bounces off the high walls of the fjords. There are no harsh shadows here, only a gentle transition from soft gray to deep indigo, a palette of colors that invites the eyes to rest and the mind to wander. The geology of this place is a story told in slow motion, a narrative of pressure and patience where the weight of the ice once pressed down with such force that it bowed the very crust of the planet. Now the ice has retreated just enough to let the sea flow in, filling these deep gashes in the earth with a calm, saltwater peace. You can see the history of this movement in the smooth, polished faces of the granite, where the glaciers have left long, parallel grooves like the fingerprints of a giant, marking the path of a journey that took thousands of years to complete. The sound of the fjords is not one of silence, but of a very specific kind of quiet, a layering of soft, natural noises that create a sense of deep security. There is the distant, muffled roar of a waterfall, a white thread of water cascading down 1,000 feet of rock, turning into a fine mist before it even reaches the surface of the sea. There is the occasional soft splash of a seal surfacing to take a breath, its dark, intelligent eyes watching us for a moment before it slips back under the water with barely a ripple. And always there is the sound of the rain. Not a storm, but a fine, persistent drizzle that patters against the leaves and the water. A rhythmic white noise that lulls the senses into a state of total relaxation. This rain is the lifeblood of the fjords, the constant gardener that keeps the moss green and the waterfalls flowing. A gentle reminder of the cycle of water that connects the high peaks to the deep sea. In the small, hidden coves that tuck away into the folds of the mountains, the water becomes so still it looks like polished glass. Here the reflections are perfect, a mirror image of the snowy peaks and the green forests, creating a world of symmetry where up and down lose their meaning. It is in these quiet corners that one can truly feel the age of the landscape, a place that has remained largely unchanged since the first maps were drawn by hand. The explorers who first navigated these waters spoke of the overwhelming sense of solitude. But it is not a lonely solitude. Rather, it is a feeling of being cradled by the earth, of being small in a way that is comforting and right. The scale of the fjords is so vast that our own worries and thoughts seem to dissolve into the mist, becoming as light and inconsequential as the clouds that drift across the summits. We might imagine a small wooden boat anchored in one of these coves, its timber creaking softly as it rises and falls with the imperceptible breath of the tide. Inside, a small stove might be burning, the smell of birch wood and dry tea filling the small cabin. A pocket of warmth in the cool, damp wilderness. The windows would be beaded with condensation, blurring the view of the green walls outside into a soft, impressionistic painting. To be here is to be at the end of the world, but also at its very beginning, in a place where the elements are pure and the pace of life is dictated by the moon and the seasons. There is no hurry in the fjords. The mountains have waited millions of years to be seen, and they are content to wait millions more, standing in their silent, moss-covered dignity. As the afternoon wanes, the light turns to a soft lavender, casting long, gentle shadows across the water. The birds that inhabit the cliffs, the cormorants and the small, bright-eyed petrels begin to settle into their nests, their calls becoming fewer and further between until only the sound of the water remains. The air grows cooler still, a crispness that feels refreshing and clean, inviting us to pull our thoughts inward and find a place of stillness within ourselves. The fjords are a sanctuary, a natural cathedral where the roof is the sky and the pillars are the ancient stone, a place designed by time itself to offer a respite from the noise of the world. We drift past a small island, little more than a mound of granite topped with a single, resilient tree. Its roots have found purchase in the smallest of cracks, holding fast against the elements, a testament to the quiet strength that defines this entire region. The tree stands still, its branches heavy with moisture, a silent witness to the passing of the hours. We watch as the mist begins to rise from the water, a soft white blanket that slowly obscures the base of the cliffs, making the mountains appear as though they are floating in the air. This mist is cold and soft, a tactile reminder of the moisture that sustains this emerald world, drifting through the trees like a ghost of the glaciers that once stood here. The history of these waters is not one of grand battles or bustling cities, but of the quiet movements of people who understood the rhythm of the tides. Long ago, the nomadic canoe people moved through these fjords with a grace that left no mark upon the land. their fires flickering on the small beaches for a night before they moved on with the morning light. They knew the secrets of the hidden channels, the places where the shellfish were plentiful and the wind was blocked by the high ridges. Their presence is still felt in the profound peace of the coves, a lingering sense of harmony between humanity and the wild, a reminder that we are guests in this ancient, watery kingdom. We can almost see the glow of their hearths in the twilight, a warm spark against the deepening blue of the forest, a symbol of the enduring human spirit in a land of ice and stone. Now, as the day begins to fold itself away, the fjords take on a deeper, more resonant quiet. The colors fade from green and blue into shades of charcoal and silver, the landscape becoming a study in texture and form. The water remains flat and dark, a mirror for the first few stars that begin to blink into existence in the clear patches of sky above the peaks. These stars are bright and steady, their light traveling through the thin, cold air to touch the surface of the sea with a faint, shimmering glow. The world feels immense, yet strangely intimate, as if the mountains have leaned in closer to protect this secret waterway from the rest of the world. The movement of our journey is now so slow as to be almost imperceptible, a drifting that mirrors the slow, geological pace of the land itself. We are moving toward the inner reaches, where the fjords narrow and the mountains grow even taller, their heads lost in the permanent clouds of the high ice fields. Here the water is even colder, a deep, chilling temperature that speaks of the proximity of the great glaciers. Yet even here there is a sense of comfort, a feeling of being tucked away in the farthest corner of the map, far from the reach of anything but the wind and the tide. The darkness is not a void, but a soft velvet presence that invites sleep, a natural conclusion to a day spent in the company of giants. The rhythm of the water against the shore is a steady, slow heartbeat, a sound that has not changed in 10,000 years. It is a sound that promises continuity, a reminder that the world will continue its slow, beautiful dance long after we have closed our eyes. The moss will continue to grow, the waterfalls will continue to tumble, and the fjords will remain, carved deep into the heart of the continent, a testament to the power of water in time. We feel the coolness of the air on our faces, a final, gentle touch from the wild before we retreat into the warmth of our thoughts, letting the images of green stone and silver water fade into the soft edges of a dream. The granite walls, so imposing in the light of day, now seem like protective arms, sheltering the water and everything upon it from the vastness of the southern ocean. There is a safety in this enclosure, a feeling of being held in a cradle of stone that has weathered every storm the planet could throw at it. The rock is old, far older than the trees or the moss, a foundation of the world that provides a steady, unyielding presence in the darkness. We can feel the weight of it, a grounding force that pulls us down into a state of deep, heavy rest, a stillness that matches the stillness of the mountains themselves. As we drift further into the quiet, the last traces of the day's journey begin to dissolve. The scent of the sea, the sound of the rain, the sight of the emerald cliffs, all of these sensations become a soft hum in the background of our consciousness, a lullaby sung by the earth itself. The fjords are a place of transition, a bridge between the solid world and the fluid sea. And now they become a bridge for us, leading away from the wakefulness of the day and toward the soft, uncharted waters of sleep. The path ahead is clear and calm, a winding way through the darkness that requires no effort, only a willingness to be carried by the gentle flow of the tide. The air is now perfectly still, the mist having settled into a low, thick fog that blankets the water in a coat of white down. Everything is muffled, everything is soft. Everything is at rest. The peaks above are invisible now, hidden by the clouds and the night. But we know they are there, standing watch over the silent fjords with a patience that is eternal. We are part of this stillness now, a small point of awareness in a vast, sleeping landscape moving slowly and peacefully toward the heart of the quiet. The water laps once, twice. Against the shore, a sound so faint it is almost a memory. The world is settling down, the energy of the day having dissipated into the cool, damp night. Every leaf is still. Every ripple has smoothed itself out, and the fjords are left in a state of perfect, undisturbed peace. We follow this peace, letting it lead us deeper into the shadows, where the light of the stars is the only guide we need. The journey through the western waters is coming to a soft conclusion, leaving us in a place of total tranquility, where the only thing left to do is to breathe in the cool, clean air and let the darkness wrap around us like a familiar cloak. The transition is nearly complete, the emerald world having given way to a landscape of soft grays and deep blacks, a palette that soothes the mind and prepares the spirit for rest. There is no more distance to cover, no more sights to see, only the quiet presence of the fjords and the steady, rhythmic breathing of the sea. We are anchored now not by iron or rope, but by the sheer weight of the peace that surrounds us, a stillness that is as deep and enduring as the stone beneath the water. As we settle into this final, quiet embrace, we find ourselves ready to leave the water behind, moving toward the high, frozen heart of the land where the air is thin and the silence is absolute. The silence of the high interior is a heavy, velvet thing, a blanket of quiet that rests upon the granite shoulders of the world. As we step away from the crashing spray of the coast, the air changes, losing its salt and taking on the scent of dry stone and ancient, sleeping ice. Here in the vast stretches of the Patagonian steppe, the land opens up like a long, slow exhale. It is a place of golden grasses that ripple like the surface of a pond under a soft breeze, stretching toward a horizon that seems to lean back, inviting the eyes to rest on nothing in particular. In this wide, amber world, there were those who came with dreams of permanence, carrying seeds and tools and the quiet hope of building a life where the wind is the only constant neighbor. They were the wanderers who looked at the empty spaces and saw a home, though the land itself had a way of remaining beautifully, stubbornly indifferent to their arrival. Imagine the sound of a wagon wheel turning slowly over dry earth, a rhythmic wooden creak that punctuates the stillness of a summer afternoon. These early travelers arrived when the sun was high and the shadows of the peaks were long, blue fingers reaching across the plains. They brought with them the things of a different world: heavy iron kettles, bundles of wool, and small leather-bound books that held the names of plants from gardens thousands of miles away. They chose spots near the wandering streams, where the water is so clear it looks like liquid glass flowing over smooth, Colorful pebbles, here they stacked stones to make walls, choosing each rock for its weight and the way it fit against its neighbor. Building small, sturdy shelters that smelled of damp earth and cut grass. They were not looking for conquest, but for a place to sit by a fire and watch the stars come out. One by one, in a sky so clear it felt as though you could reach up and touch the cold, silver light of the moon. The life of these small settlements was measured by the movement of the sun and the changing colors of the brush. In the mornings, the light would catch the dew on the Quaran grass, turning the entire plain into a field of shimmering diamonds. A settler might stand in the doorway of a half-finished cabin, breathing in the sharp, clean scent of the morning air, watching a hawk circle slowly in the updrafts. There was no rush here. The tasks were simple and repetitive, tending to a small patch of hardy vegetables, mending a fence made of twisted branches, or simply walking to the creek to fill a bucket with water that tasted of snow and minerals. The work was a slow dance with the environment, a quiet conversation between human hands and the resistance of the soil. It was a time of profound simplicity, where the most important event of the day might be the way the light hit the granite spires at sunset, turning them a soft, dusty rose. As the months turned, the settlers began to understand the true character of the wind. It is not a guest in Patagonia. It is the master of the house. It arrives not with a roar, but with a persistent, low hum, a song played on the strings of the tall grass. It carries the smell of distance, of glaciers and hidden valleys where no human foot has stepped. The people in these lonely outposts would huddle inside their stone walls, listening to the wind brush against the thatch of the roof like a giant cat purring. They learned to move with the wind, to lean into it when walking, and to appreciate the sudden, profound moments of stillness when the air became perfectly motionless. In those quiet gaps, the world felt suspended in amber, a peaceful pause where the only sound was the heartbeat of the land itself. They planted trees, poplars, and willows, hoping to create a windbreak, a small sanctuary of calm. You can still find these trees today, standing in straight, lonely lines in the middle of the vastness. Their trunks are bent, leaning away from the prevailing gusts, their leaves whispering stories of the people who watered them when they were just saplings. These trees were a promise made to the future, a sign that someone intended to stay, to see the seasons turn for decades to come. There is a gentleness in the sight of a lone poplar in the steppe, a soft green vertical line against the horizontal gold of the earth. It represents a moment of human hope, a quiet effort to soften the edges of a wild landscape, even if only for a little while. Inside the small homes, the atmosphere was one of hushed domesticity. The floors were often just packed earth, swept clean every morning, and the furniture was carved from the local wood, rough-hewn and smelling of sap. In the evenings, the glow of a single oil lamp would cast long, dancing shadows against the walls. A family might sit together, the only sound the scratching of a pen on paper or the soft click of knitting needles. They wrote letters that would take months to reach the coast, describing the way the light changed the color of the mountains and how the guanacos, those elegant deer-like creatures, would watch them from a distance with large, curious eyes. There was a sense of being at the very edge of the map, in a place where time slowed down until every hour felt as long and spacious as the plains themselves. But the land has its own rhythm, a cycle of seasons that demands a certain kind of resilience. When the first dustings of snow began to fall, they did not arrive with a storm, but drifted down like feathers, landing silently on the golden grass. The world became a study in white and gray, a soft, muffled landscape where every sound was swallowed by the cold. The settlers would watch the snow pile up against their stone walls, creating a natural insulation that kept the interior warm and dim. They spent these long winters in a state of quiet hibernation, living off the stores they had gathered in the sunnier months. It was a time for reflection, for watching the frost patterns grow across the small glass panes of the windows, delicate and intricate like lace. Eventually, many of these pioneers realized that the land was not meant to be owned, but merely visited one by one. The fires in the hearths went out. They did not live in a hurry, but with a slow, deliberate packing of belongings, leaving the stone walls and the leaning trees behind. They left not because of failure, but because they had heard the call of the horizon again, or perhaps because they realized that the silence of the interior was too vast for a single life to fill. They left the doors unlatched and the gardens to the wind, returning to the coast or moving further north toward gentler climates. The houses they built did not crumble quickly. They surrendered to the earth with a quiet grace, the stones slowly settling back into the soil, the wood silvering under the sun until it matched the color of the clouds. Today, if you wander into these high reaches, you might find the remains of a chimney or a circle of stones that once marked a threshold. These ruins are not sad. They are peaceful. They are resting places where the history of human endeavor has blended perfectly with the natural world. The grass grows up through the floorboards, and the birds build nests in the nooks of the masonry. There is a profound sense of rest in these abandoned places, a feeling that the land has taken back what was always its own, cradling the memory of the settlers in a soft embrace of lichen and moss. The wind still blows through the empty window frames, but now it carries no smoke, only the scent of the wild herbs that have reclaimed the gardens. As we look at these remnants, we feel a sense of kinship with those who stood here before. They saw the same stars we see, felt the same chill of the evening air, and marveled at the way the light plays across the granite peaks. Their presence is a gentle layer in the long history of Patagonia, a soft footfall on a path that continues on into the distance. The land remains vast and unchanged, holding the stories of those who stayed for a season and then moved on, leaving behind only the quiet echo of their dreams. The silence here is not empty. It is full of the weight of time, a deep and comforting stillness that invites us to let go of our own hurries and worries. The sun begins to dip lower now, casting a golden glow over the ruins and the long grass. The shadows stretch out, soft and elongated, blurring the lines between what was built and what has always been. The air grows cooler, a gentle reminder of the ice that sits high above in the hidden valleys. Waiting for the night, there is no need to move quickly. No need to seek shelter just yet. We can simply sit among the silvered wood and the weathered stones, breathing in the peace of a place that has seen everything and remains unmoved. The world is settling down for the evening, the light fading into a soft, dusky purple that blankets the steppe in a quiet, protective layer. As the last glow of day lingers on the highest peaks, we turn our thoughts away from the traces of people and toward the great, white cathedrals of the interior. The mountains stand as silent sentinels, their icy hearts beating with a rhythm that spans eons. We are moving now toward a place where the air is even stiller, where the water is frozen into slow-moving rivers of blue light, and where the only sound is the occasional, deep groan of the earth shifting under the weight of the ages. The transition is seamless, a slow drift from the golden plains to the cool, crystalline world of the high glaciers, where the stars reflect off the surface of the ice like diamonds scattered on a dark velvet cloth. And the night is a long, peaceful breath held in the heart of the continent. The stillness that follows the breath of the glacier is a soft and heavy thing, a blanket of quiet that rolls down from the high, jagged peaks and settles over the wide, rolling plains of the steppe. As the light turns to a pale, dusty gold, the sharp edges of the granite towers seem to soften, blurring into the purple haze of the coming night. The wind, which has spent the afternoon dancing through the tall grasses and whistling in the hollows of the rocks, begins to slow its pace, turning from a steady push into a gentle, rhythmic sigh that carries the scent of dry earth and cold water. Out here, where the land stretches toward the horizon in endless waves of ochre and silver green, the evening does not arrive with a start, but rather unfolds like a long, slow ribbon of silk being laid across the grass. You can feel the heat of the day radiating upward from the stones, a faint and lingering warmth that meets the cooling air, creating a soft shimmer just above the ground where the small creatures of the brush begin their slow, nocturnal wanderings. Imagine the scent of the quaron grass, a dry and honeyed aroma that fills the air as the stalks sway ever so slightly in the dying breeze. The grass is tough and golden, standing in dense tufts that have been shaped by years of wind into smooth, rounded mounds that look like sleeping animals huddled against the earth. Between these tufts, the soil is a fine, pale dust marked here and there by the delicate, three-toed prints of the guanaco. These elegant creatures, with their long necks and soft, mahogany-colored fur, are moving now with a slow and measured grace toward the sheltered dips in the land. They do not hurry, for the evening belongs to the patient. They pause often to nibble on the hardy shrubs, their large, dark eyes reflecting the fading glow of the sky, their ears twitching at the sound of a distant stream or the rustle of a gray fox moving through the scrub. There is a profound sense of safety in their movements, a communal calm that spreads across the herd as they find their resting places for the night, tucking their legs beneath them and resting their heads against the soft curve of their own shoulders. The sky above the steppe is vast, an ocean of air that seems to grow deeper and more transparent as the sun dips below the edge of the world. The colors shift with a painter's patience, moving from the bright orange of a glowing coal to a soft, bruised plum and finally to a deep, resonant indigo that feels as thick as velvet. In this transition, the stars do not appear all at once, but rather emerge one by one, like small lanterns being lit in a very distant window. The first is usually a steady, silver point of light hanging low over the silhouette of the Andes, followed by another and then another, until the entire dome of the heavens is dusted with a fine, glittering powder. There is no flicker here, no trembling of the light, for the air is so pure and so cold that the stars seem to sit just within reach, suspended in the clarity of the high atmosphere. It is a sky that invites you to look upward and let your thoughts drift away, losing themselves in the infinite patterns of the Southern Cross and the Milky, glowing clouds of the Magellanic Nebulae. Down on the ground, the textures of the night are cool and crisp. The small caliphate bushes with their dark, leathery leaves and sharp little thorns hold onto the last of the day's shadows. Their berries, small and round and the color of a deep summer twilight, are cool to the touch, dusted with a fine silvery bloom that rubs off on the fingers like powdered sugar. If you were to sit among these bushes, you would hear the tiny, rhythmic sounds of the steppe at rest, the dry scrape of a beetle's shell against a pebble, the soft thump of a hare's foot on the packed earth, and the distant, melodic trickle of a meltwater stream finding its way through a bed of smooth, round stones. The water is clear and icy, having traveled down from the high snowfields, and as it moves across the plains, it brings a sense of freshness to the dry land, a cool vein of life that hums a low, liquid lullaby to the sleeping grass. The wind has now become a mere whisper, a soft brush against the cheek that carries the memory of the great ice fields far to the west. It is a clean smell, devoid of the heaviness of the forest or the salt of the sea, smelling only of stone and space and time. In this quietude, the history of the land feels very close, written in the layers of the soil and the shapes of the rocks that have been smoothed by a million years of weather. There is no rush here, no sense of urgency, for the steppe has seen countless evenings just like this one, and it knows the value of a slow transition into sleep. The shadows stretch out and merge, turning the golden plains into a sea of soft grays and deep blues, where the only movement is the slow rotation of the stars overhead. Deep within the folds of the landscape, where the earth forms small, protected basins, the air pools and grows still. Here, the warmth of the day stays a little longer, trapped by the rocky walls and the thick carpet of mosses that grow in the damp spots. It is a cozy, enclosed world, a contrast to the immense openness of the high plateaus. In these hollows, the tiny flowers of the desert, pale yellows and soft whites, close their petals tight, tucking their colors away until the morning light returns. The moss is springy and damp, smelling of old rain and turned earth, providing a soft bed for the insects that have finished their daily work. Everything is drawing inward, folding itself into a state of quiet reflection, as the cold of the deep night begins to settle in earnest. You might imagine a small fire, perhaps the remnants of a traveler's camp from long ago, where the embers are now just a soft, pulsing orange glow in a circle of stones. There is no smoke now, only the faint, sweet scent of charred wood and the comforting knowledge of a hearth. The heat from the stones is a gentle presence, a small anchor in the vastness of the dark. As the embers fade, the orange light grows dimmer, retreating into the ash until it is nothing more than a memory of warmth. The darkness that follows is not a void, but a presence, a soft, protective layer that wraps around the hills and the valleys, muffling sound and softening the world. It is a darkness that feels like a heavy wool coat, weightless yet warm, shielding the land from the biting chill of the stars. The mountains in the distance have lost their detail, becoming simple, dark shapes against the glittering sky. They look like great, sleeping giants, their snowy peaks catching the faint starlight and glowing with a ghostly, ethereal luminescence. The glaciers, those slow-moving rivers of ice, are silent now, their creaks and groans stilled by the drop in temperature. They sit in their high valleys like frozen white sapphires, beautiful and still, holding the history of the world in their crystalline depths. The water that flows from them has slowed to a crawl, the trickles turning to thin veins of ice along the edges of the banks, waiting for the sun to release them once more. On the steppe, the guanacos have settled completely, their breathing slow and synchronized, a soft chorus of life in the immense quiet. A great horned owl glides silently overhead, its wings making no sound as it cuts through the thin air, a shadow moving across the stars. It is a guardian of the night, a silent witness to the peace that has descended over Patagonia. The owl perches on a weathered fence post, a relic of a quiet ranch, and turns its head slowly, surveying the silvered landscape. There is nothing to fear in this dark, only the profound rest of an ancient place that has finished its day and is now surrendering to the grace of the night. As the hours pass, the cold becomes a steady, numbing beauty, turning the dew on the grass into tiny, sparkling crystals of frost. Each blade of quaran is suddenly edged in silver, a delicate embroidery that catches the light of the rising moon. The moon is a large, pale disk casting long, dramatic shadows across the plains and turning the dusty earth into a landscape of quicksilver. The world looks different under this light, more mysterious perhaps, but also more serene. The vastness of the space feels less daunting when it is bathed in this soft, milky glow, and the horizon seems to pull back even further, inviting the mind to wander into the furthest reaches of the continent. The silence of the Patagonian night is a physical thing, a deep resonance that you can feel in your chest. It is not the absence of sound, but the presence of a great, underlying peace. It is the sound of the earth turning, the sound of the stars burning, the sound of the wind resting in the hollows of the hills. It is a silence that invites you to let go of the day, to release the thoughts that have occupied your mind, and to simply be a part of this vast, starlit world. The air you breathe is sharp and clean, filling your lungs with the freshness of the ice and the purity of the high plains. And with each exhale, you feel yourself sinking deeper into the soft embrace of the evening. The steppe is a place of endurance, but also of great tenderness. In the way the grass protects the soil, in the way the animals huddle for warmth, in the way the light lingers on the mountain tops, there is a sense of care that permeates the landscape. As the night reaches its deepest point, the world seems to hold its breath, suspended in a moment of perfect equilibrium. The cold and the dark are not enemies here, but companions, necessary parts of the rhythm that keeps this land alive and beautiful. The ice remains, the stone remains, and the wind waits patiently for the dawn. But for now, there is only the stillness. The journey across this land, from the crashing waves of the coast to the silent heart of the glaciers, ends here in the soft grass of the evening steppe. It is a place where the scale of the world is revealed in all its majesty. Yet it remains intimate, a home for the small and the quiet. The stars continue their slow, majestic wheeling across the sky, marking the passage of time in a way that feels eternal. There is no beginning and no end to this peace, only a continuous flow of rest that moves across the continent like a slow-moving tide. As you imagine yourself lying back against the cool, firm earth, the scent of the dry grass and the distant ice filling your senses, the world begins to fade. The silver light of the moon becomes a soft blur, and the sound of the wind is nothing more than a faint, rhythmic pulse in your ears. The heaviness of your limbs matches the heaviness of the night air, a comfortable weight that anchors you to the ground. You are a part of the steppe now, a part of the stone and the starlight, drifting in the vast, quiet ocean of the Patagonian evening. The frost continues to grow, decorating the world in a silent, sparkling lace, and the deep blue of the sky begins to soften at the very edges, though the sun is still many hours away. The guanacos stir in their sleep, a soft rustle of fur against grass, and then all is still again. The mountains stand watch, their white peaks glowing softly in the dark, and the glaciers remain as silent sentinels of the high places. Everything is exactly as it should be, held in the gentle, unyielding grip of the night. The stars seem to descend a little lower, their light becoming a warm, flickering blanket that covers the plains. The indigo depths of the sky are a comfort, a reminder of the infinite space that surrounds this beautiful, rugged corner of the world. You feel the slow, steady heartbeat of the earth beneath you, a calm and reassuring rhythm that lulls you further into the quiet. There is nothing left to do, nothing left to see, only the slow, drifting descent into a sleep as deep and as peaceful as the valleys between the granite towers. The air grows even stiller, if such a thing is possible, until even the whisper of the grass falls silent. The world is a painting in shades of silver and shadow, a masterpiece of quietude that stretches from the frozen south to the warm heart of the north. You are floating now, carried on the slow currents of the night air, moving over the plains and the rivers, over the forests and the ice, until the entire continent is just a soft, glowing memory in the back of your mind. The night is long and the night is kind. It offers a sanctuary for the weary and a playground for the stars. In the heart of Patagonia, the evening does not just end the day. It completes it, bringing a sense of wholeness and rest to every stone and every blade of grass. As the last embers of the fire turn to gray ash and the moon reaches its highest point, the stillness becomes absolute. It is a perfect, crystalline moment of peace, a soft closing of the eyes, a gentle surrender to the vast and beautiful dark. The steppe sleeps, the ice sleeps, and the wind is a dream of movement in a world that has found its rest.